Hi everyone, it's Carolyn from True Crime Chat with Mommy Ramblings, and I've been asked to debunk a few things that are going around, try to put an end to them, try to find a place to direct new people that may be coming from the Netflix documentary, brand new into the case and stumbling into some of these channels, and direct them to the truth. And by the truth, we're going to be using facts. Okay, so we're going to fight it with facts, we're going to show them the facts, and hopefully start showing people that what's going on in these other channels is just complete lunacy. All right, so let's get in here and let's look at why Christopher Watts was not railroaded. Hi everyone, so what we're going to do is I was asked, please start looking into this stuff, start debunking this stuff, so there's somewhere to direct these people who may be coming brand new to the case through the Netflix documentary, and maybe they're landing in these unsavory channels that are posting this absolute crap because they're either in love with the murderer in this case or whatnot. And on behalf of the family, as she says, family is just absolutely delusional if they believe anything that they're saying. But anyway, we're going to go through this and show how Christopher Watts was not railroaded into his plea deal, how he could have had a trial with a jury of his peers. He chose not to. How he was advised of all of his rights and understood his rights. And so saying he was railroaded or that he was pressured is completely false. And he even admitted that further when he was interviewed many months later at Dodge Correctional. And we're going to go through all of that here. So, just hopefully this can just serve as something just to put this absolute utter nonsense to rest, because it's just insane. And I don't understand how this channel filled with these conspiracy theories, slandering, because they're about to go in a really, really nasty direction. If you listen to her videos, in which you shouldn't, you'll see that it's going to go into the direction of not only blaming Shanann, but it seems to be going to blame Nicole Atkinson and then accuse them of, if you read between the lines, dealing drugs, going on drug runs. It's just insane. It's absolutely insane. And it needs to be off of YouTube because it violates their own terms of service, and it's about time they start enforcing those terms of service. So let's take a look at debunking this, that Christopher Watts was railroaded. Okay, so what we're going to look at first, in order to show that Chris was not railroaded, and as much as this person on YouTube will like to keep using that word that was first used by Cindy Watts, he was railroaded. You were railroaded, Chris. No, he wasn't, Cindy. No, he wasn't, Kim. Okay, so we're going to debunk some of this stuff because it's just so ridiculous. And the first point that it's ridiculous would be that, this is your defense that you're building for him. You're not an attorney. You're building this defense for him and then laying it out on YouTube and want us to believe that this is really happening. Okay. So where's your dream team? Do you think a defense attorney would tell you to go out there and put this all out there on YouTube and let everyone know you got, oh, look at I've got here, and this is going to be something that's going to be in our team? Yeah, doesn't really work that way, Kim. But I don't know. Keep it up. No, not really. You should stop it. You're just hurting victims that have already been hurt beyond belief for your own satisfaction and for if you are still working with Cindy and the family for the purpose of trying to clear Cindy's name by clearing her son's name. So on February 18th of 2019, CBI agent Tammy Lee, along with Federal Bureau of Investigation Special Agent Graham Coder and Frederick Police Department Detective Dave Baumhover, traveled to see Christopher Watts, and the purpose for their visit was to interview Christopher Lee Watts concerning the murder of his pregnant wife and daughters, as well as to discuss other individuals who claimed to have had an affair with Watts during his marriage. The report documents a follow-up interview conducted with Christopher Lee Watts, who was sentenced on November of 2018 to 3 consecutive life terms in prison, 84 plus 84 years, without the possibility of parole. Okay, so let's look at why Chris Watts is not going to be able to claim he was railroaded. Okay, let's first look at something regarding Chris's first confession in his interview in the Frederick Police Department. So with regard to what we could have said in order for him to have told us the truth during his interview at the Frederick Police Department. When he was in the interrogation room, he said he was nervous, knew he did something wrong, and knew we were going to find out. He had watched enough TV shows, but never talked to a police officer in the past. He struggled with the horror of knowing what he did and trying to tell someone else about it. He didn't even want to admit to himself what he had done. He knew what he did was horrific and how much it would hurt other people. He couldn't admit to himself that he had done it, so he couldn't admit it to the police. He believed if he wasn't asked about Shanann hurting the kids, it may have come out a different way. He believed if we would have lied and told him we saw the video of the kids in the truck, that he would have told us the truth. He asked to talk to his dad because he wanted to tell him he loved him and that it was probably the last time he would see him outside of a cell. He felt like the interviewers leaving the room from time to time gave him time to stew, which was a successful tactic. He had never seen the picture before of his 2 girls, which we showed him during the interrogation. Now this right here is almost delusional because it's right there in the interrogation that he is shown this picture. He said he has never seen Celeste wearing the white dress in the picture. The picture of Celeste and Bella we showed him may have come from when they were in North Carolina. Showing him pictures of the girls during the interrogation definitely got in my head, is what he said. He didn't show emotion when we showed him the pictures because he's the type of person to hold it all in and not show emotion, which is ridiculous when he says he was bawling like a baby during these emotional conversations he was having with Shanann. So the fact that anybody believes that this guy tells the truth is ridiculous. And to claim he's this Christian man and then to be lying the way he does doesn't really jive with that picture, does it? At the end of the interview, we left the prison, okay, as Watts was required to eat lunch. Okay, this is before they said we may come back after lunch, and they did. They returned several hours later to speak with him again, and that's when we're going to look at the counsel, okay, because to show that he was not railroaded and that he knows he was not railroaded, and this is all a fabrication that began with Cindy Watts. Okay, so we're on page 20, I believe, of 31. With regards to why Watts pled guilty, I didn't, this is Christopher's out of his mouth, I didn't want anybody else, I didn't want them to go through this for 2 to 4 years. I didn't want my attorneys to lie for me for 2 to 4 years. They would have done anything I told them to do. I don't see how they can do that. Like, that's what attorneys do, like they take their defendant and they say, hey, like what happened? Okay, we'll go with that story. few weeks after his arrest, he told his attorneys the truth about everything that happened. His attorneys asked him if he was offered a plea to plead guilty, would he take it? He said he would plead guilty in order to end it all. His attorneys asked him about 100 times if he was sure he wanted to take the plea deal. Before he walked into the courtroom, his attorneys asked him again if he was sure he wanted to take the plea deal. His attorneys never told him he had to take the plea deal, and they had a lot of creative motions to file and were ready to fight. He told Walsh he didn't want him to fight for something where the story wasn't true because it only would have gotten worse for everyone. He does not regret taking a plea deal, but he never thought he'd be in prison for the rest of his life. Really? Okay. What did the plea deal say, Chris? He didn't want for everyone to have to relive the case every day. He told his parents the night before he pled guilty that he was pleading for a reason. His parents had received correspondence from people all over the world, who told him the Thrive patch wasn't FDA approved and could alter someone's mind. His parents still believe he was railroaded and felt pressured to plead guilty. Let's read that again. His parents still believe he was railroaded and felt pressure to plead guilty. Did Chris say that? No. Did Chris feel that? No. Did his attorneys do everything they could to make him understand he didn't have to take that plea deal and he had the right to a trial in front of a jury of his peers? Yes. He does not feel he was pressured because his defense team asked him plenty of times. His parents, again, Cindy and Ronnie Watts, talked to him about using the defense of CPTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, for being in an emotionally abusive relationship. He could relate to some of the information, but it doesn't make up for what happened. Do you think, Chris? When he talks to his parents on the phone, they believe there is a chance he could get out of prison. That's what we call delusionals. Delusional thoughts. That's what we call delusions. Okay, there we have that, but I'm sure the spin queen, Kim, is going to try to spin that in another way. Let's see, but that's what we have right there. So let's go on. He says on his parents' bad days, they tell him he should fight it. His mother loses it a lot on the phone. His dad always tells his mother not to talk about it with him on the phone because he, Watts, will go back to his cell and think about it all night. He plans on telling his parents the truth about what happened when they visit him in April or May. And that was back in 2019. Now, his parents sold his toolbox so they could afford their travel to, and that must be Wisconsin. In October of 2018, the prosecutors went to Sandy and Frank Rusak and asked them about a possible plea deal instead of the death penalty. His defense team told him there wasn't enough evidence on certain things, and he, Watts, told the defense team it needed to end. He felt like his attorneys were fair and were similar to guidance counselors. He felt like he, Watts, was in charge of his own decisions regarding his case. His attorneys told him he needed to show more emotion in court, so he didn't look like a cold person. His attorneys told him he could look at the crime pictures, and he, Watts, refused. He prayed for the hazmat workers and anyone else who had to see the aftermath. His attorneys told him that if the case went to court, he would have to look at the pictures so he didn't have a reaction when they were shown in court. Watts asked if Sandy and Frank Rusak saw the crime scene pictures, and he was told no. He didn't want Sandy or Frank Rusak to have to see any of the pictures or hear anyone talk about what they saw or hear anyone bash their daughter's memory. He wanted everyone to know Shanann was a loving wife and always helped everyone else. He remembered Agent Lee and Coder came into the room after his father left and tried to get the true story from him. He wanted to bang his head against the table. He didn't want all of us, Coder, Baumhauer, or Tammy Lee, to have to get on the witness stand and testify about what they saw. He didn't want everyone to relive what happened over and over for years. He felt like Shanann's family could start to have closure. With regard to if his decision involved not having the death penalty, when he was in his cell in the Weld County Jail, he felt he should have died. All the inmates would yell at him at night and would explain to him all the ways he could kill himself in his cell by drowning himself in the toilet or hanging himself. He didn't kill himself because he felt he may have a different purpose. He prayed to God that God would move him away from Colorado. He heard there was a hit on him in Colorado. He felt like he would last a week in Colorado DOC before somebody would kill him, and he felt like God moved him to, obviously, Dodge for a reason. Let's continue. With regard to if Watts thought about trying to use the defense about Shanann killing the girls at trial. He never thought about Shanann killing the girls until it was mentioned to him during the interrogation. And after it was mentioned that Shanann may have killed the girls, he just went with it. He knew his dad was out in the lobby, and his parents would probably believe that Shanann was involved because they never liked Shanann. I never thought about that story, and, that's what my attorneys were going with. 2 weeks after his arrest, he told his attorneys the truth about what happened, and they were quiet and wrote it down. His attorneys told him they wouldn't judge him and appreciated his honesty. Remember, he's always concerned about how he looks. He doesn't want to look like a bad guy. He doesn't want to be judged on this one action. So with regards to his past childhood, he was always someone who tried to coax people down. He was in one fight in his entire life, which was in 3rd grade. He and the other kid ripped each other's shirts and they left crying. He wasn't popular, but he was never bullied in school. He had braces and a Jim Carrey bowl-cut haircut. He never talked to many people at school, even though people knew who he was. Never had a girlfriend in high school and always flew under the radar. He didn't have low self-esteem, but he also didn't want to be part of a group or a clique. He had a couple of friends and appreciated his close-knit relationships. His sister was always the popular one and was outgoing. He and his grandmother would sit outside the middle school, and his sister would always be late because she had to talk to everyone in the hallway. He was the opposite of his sister. He didn't want to be popular. He just wanted to be a regular guy. He cannot recall anything he would have pent up from childhood. With regard to his father's addiction and how it affected him, his father became addicted to a white powdery substance, possibly cocaine, after he left home. His father's addiction didn't hurt him as much as he thought it would. When he talked to his father about his addiction, his father immediately changed the subject. His father was coping with the fact that he, Watts, never came back home. His mother initially believed his father was having an affair because he couldn't account for the missing money. He, Watts, has never used drugs and tried to talk to his father about why he was using drugs. He told his father he was throwing his life away His father lost a lot of weight and his nose bled all the time. After Watts talked to his father stopped using drugs. Wow, he's a pretty powerful guy. He was closer to his father than his mother. His father always came to every one of his sporting events. His father would come to games, even if Watts wasn't going to play. Never saw his father cry. His mother was a loving mother and gave him affection. His mother always wanted to know how he felt. If there was something wrong, he would never have told anyone and dealt with it by himself. I don't know if growing up that way kept me the way. Deal with things on your own, but when they build up so much, then you can't deal with them, and they take a hold of you. You never thought in a way they could take a hold of you. Now let's go a little further to debunk this railroaded theory created by the Watts and carried on now by this Kim. Let's look at Christopher Watts's plea deal. Okay, this is the court document. I'll put links to this all in the video description, to both the CBI report and this. So here's his written waiver and guilty plea. People of the State of Colorado versus Christopher Lee Watts, defendant. November 6th, 2018 is when it was filed. I am the defendant in this case. I have had enough time to talk to my lawyer about this case, and he or she has discussed the evidence against me. I have fully explained my side to him or her. I believe the district attorney has enough evidence to convict me at trial. I am satisfied that my plea deal in this case is in my best interest. So, 5, I understand that I have the right to exercise any or all of the following rights, even against my lawyer's advice. A, the right to remain silent about this case. B, the right to have my lawyer represent me and be present with me during any conferences, questioning by anyone about this case, at all court hearings and at trial. C, the right to plead not guilty and have a jury trial. And D, the right to appeal my case to a higher court if I am convicted at trial. 6, I understand that the right to a jury trial includes the right to help select the jury, the right to confront witnesses who testify against me and have my lawyer cross-examine them about their testimony. C, the right to be presumed innocent unless and until the district attorney proves my guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. D, the right to have my lawyer call witnesses to testify for me if I want, and if necessary, to have the judge order witnesses to come to court. 7, I have read and understand the elements of the charges or charges that I am pleading guilty to, as shown on the attached sheet. 8, I have read and understand the possible penalties that I could be sentenced to, which are shown on the attached sheet. 9, my plea is freely, intelligently, and voluntarily given. Freely, intelligently, and voluntarily given. I know that I am giving up all the rights described above. I know that I am giving up all the rights described above. I understand these rights. I am giving up these rights and pleading guilty of my own free will. No one has pressured me or tried to make me plead guilty against my will. I have not decided to plead guilty because of anything I have been told, except for the agreements shown on the attached sheet. I understand that the record may be further supplemented by police reports, affidavits, or other documentation attached or provided at the time of sentencing. I understand that if I am not a citizen of the United States, this guilty plea may cause collateral consequences, including but not limited to deportation, exclusion from admission to the United States, or denial of naturalization. I understand that following the sentencing in this matter, I have in certain circumstances the right to appellate review of my conviction and sentence. A notice of appeal must be filed within 7 weeks or 49 days of the sentence. I also understand that if I'm determined indigent by the court, that I have the right to the assistance of appointed counsel upon the review of my conviction and sentence, and the right to obtain a record on appeal without payment of costs. Additionally, I understand that I may have the right to seek post-conviction reduction of my sentence in the trial court within 18 weeks or 126 days of the imposition of sentence pursuant to Criminal P 35B. I have read this form and I understand it. My lawyer has answered all of my questions to my satisfaction. Chris Watts, 11/5/18. And his attorney signed it, saying, I represent that I have reviewed this advisement with the defendant, and I believe he or she understands his or her rights, the charge or charges in which he or she is pleading to, and the possible penalties. I also believe that the defendant's plea is freely, intelligently, and voluntarily given. Okay. And then signed by Michael Rourke. Okay. The defendant objects to the disposition of the evidence in this case. Subsequent disposition of any preserved evidence shall be pursuant to the provisions. It's not checked. Signed, sealed, delivered. Charges that he pled guilty to. Okay, so Christopher Lee Watts, count 1, murder in the first degree. Okay, on or about the 13th day of August in the county of Weld, state of Colorado. Christopher Lee Watts unlawfully, feloniously, and after deliberation, and with the intent to cause the death of a person other than himself, caused the death of Shanann Watts. After deliberation means not only intentionally, but also the decision to commit the act has been made after the exercise and reflection and judgment concerning the act. An act committed after deliberation is never one which has been committed in a hasty or impulsive manner. Well, we know he didn't. He was not in a rage. He was not in a rage loading his truck that morning. He was not in a rage. With intent, a person that acts intentionally or with intent when his conscious objective is to cause the specific result prescribed by the statute defining the offense. It is immaterial whether or not the result actually occurred. Person, a human being who has been born and was alive at the time of the homicidal act. And he also faced the exact same charge for the murder of, let's see, this one is for Bella Watts. And then he faced the same charge for the death of Celeste Watts. Then he faced another charge, murder in the first degree. This one was that he unlawfully, felonious, and knowingly caused the death of Bella Watts in a position of trust, because he was in a position of trust and she was under a certain age. So that's this charge. He won in a position of trust includes any person who is a parent or acting in the place of a parent and charged with any of the parent's rights, responsibilities, duties concerning a child, or a person who is charged with any duty or responsibility for the health, education, welfare, or supervision of a child, including foster care, child care, or family care. So that is another one, and this is the same for Celeste. And then he has the count 6, unlawful termination of pregnancy in the first degree for terminating the pregnancy with the baby Nico. Okay, and then he has count 7, tampering with a deceased human body, and that's for Shanann, Bella, and Celeste. Okay, and then he's got so it's 9. Defendant will plead guilty to all 9 counts set forth in the complaint. Okay, so he pled guilty to all of those. Okay, 5 counts murder in the first degree. You've got first 3 after deliberation. You've got 2 for a child under 12. You've got count 6 for the unlawful termination of the pregnancy. And then you've got 3 counts of tampering with a deceased human body, class 3 felony. All sentencing options on all counts are open to the court. However, in exchange for the defendant's guilty plea, the Office of the District Attorney agrees it will not seek the death penalty. Whether sentencing on separate counts runs consecutive or concurrent to each other is open to the court, with the exception that, at a minimum, the parties stipulate the sentencing on counts 1 through 3 and count 6 shall run consecutively, as each charge references a separate victim. Defendant will not be permitted to waive a factual basis for any charge. The parties further stipulate that the defendant will pay restitution as determined by the court, including but not limited to the expenses for funeral and burial expenses for Shanann Watts, Bella Watts, Celeste Watts, and Nika Watts. And furthermore, the defendant agrees to pay the restitution covering the actual costs of specific future treatment pursuant to CRS 18-1-3-6031C. Finally, the parties stipulate that the people may withdraw from this agreement if the defendant commits a new felony offense while awaiting sentencing. Okay. And then we have the evidence disposition, but there it is, guys. So the only railroad that Christopher Watts has been on is the one that the crazy train runs on. He has not been railroaded by his attorneys, by the prosecutor, by law enforcement, by the CBI or the FBI. He knew what he was doing. He's admitted it on multiple occasions, long time spans between the admission of that. So can you please stop with that nonsense? And if you see that nonsense, direct them here. Because just fight it with facts. That's the new hashtag, fight it with facts. Okay? Thanks for watching, everybody. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'll talk to you very soon. I'll be debunking some more of this craziness that she brings here until YouTube takes her off.